If there is no God, all of reality is matter and energy.
What if there's something else?
Okay.
All of reality is matter and energy if there is no God. That's all there is, a chemical reaction. Because you guys don't live that way.
We live exactly
No,
that
you don't live that way.
No.
You are longing for a woman to really love you, which means not you can provide for me financially, which is not, hey, you know something, your body turns me on. You long for her to genuinely care for you, and you want to genuinely care for her, I hope.
Why? How can it be personal and also have a universal set of laws to follow?
Okay, my name's Robert. Your name is?
Brooke?
Brooke. Okay, so if I come up to you and say, hi, Brady, like, how are you? Like, you're over there. You're like, no, my name's Brooke. It's about revelation, right? It's about how much is revealed in a relationship, right? And I think that's why it's so difficult for some of us to talk about this, is because we don't want to reveal who we really are. We don't want to be like, well, does God really know me? Does God really know every single secret I have and yet could possibly still love me? Like that's the precipice we're on, I think, as we're talking about, right?
It's like, okay, I see what you're saying about like kind of a distinction between the Bible itself and like the spiritual presence of Jesus and whatnot.
Right.
I feel like the issue with this is that I've been talking to you for like an hour now, actually less than that, but for a while now,
Sure.
And I still haven't gotten an answer, it's like a straight up answer for why Christianity is right and all the other religions are wrong, because what you told me about, just as an example, I'm not even a Buddhist, but just for example, Buddhism implies to me you know very little about it. Like, how can you claim to know what is correct if you are basically inundated with Christian? Were you born Christian?
Are we in a Christian nation? I don't know, but I made a decision to follow Jesus as my life progressed. How could God reveal himself to us? God is invisible. God is unseen. I've never heard God speak. I think when people say, oh, I've got a word from God just from myself to you, you have to be really skeptical of that, right? You have to think about, whoa, okay, who's this special person claiming to know right away? And you're asking me, what's my own experience? My own experience has been Jesus teaches not just ethical brilliance, not just how I ought to live, but provides a solution for why there is so much wrong in this world. Because I think
you're raising a great issue.
Yeah.
Buddha never once, you read the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, never once does he mention God. So Buddha's agnostic. Jesus Christ said, this is eternal life, that women and men might know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you sent. So ma'am, what is it? Is there no God, or is there a God? Buddha says, I don't know, I really don't care. Jesus says, the whole purpose of life is to know God and to love God. Ma'am, the law of non-contradiction holds every single time. A and non-A cannot both be true at the same time in the same way. Either there is no God or there is a God. Both are not true. Either Brooke exists or Brooke does not exist. Both cannot be true in the same way at the same time. Secondly, Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, never talked about heaven. He never talked about an eternal life with a body, a physical body. Jesus Christ did. Big contradiction between nirvana that Buddha taught and heaven. Thirdly, the way to increase your life in the future was to live a good life. Pile up good karma. Very close to Hinduism, Buddha was. Jesus Christ says, no, you'll never make it to heaven by living a good life. Because none of us have lived a good life as God defines good. Oh yes, I'm a great guy. As my culture defines good, I'm an outstanding American citizen. Unfortunately, on the day of judgment, I'm not going to be standing before the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm going to be standing before an all-knowing, just God. And although I've never raped, I have lusted. Although I've never murdered, I have hated. Although I've never stolen money out of a bank, I have been greedy. So I'm not this great guy that I wish you all would believe that I am. I am a sinner. Now, Christ says the way that sinners make it to heaven is through grace. God's undeserved love, not by piling up good karma, not by piling up good deeds, by grace. That's a contradiction.
Like regarding that, like not all actions can be defined as like good or bad according to Buddhism. There are a lot of neutral ones, and what I would say is, like, what you've told me so far still does not give me a reason to believe in Christianity over Buddhism. You're just outlining the differences between those two, like, systems of belief.
Right, they contradict each other.
Yeah, with Buddhism, I mean, all I have to do is, go around the bend a few more times if you believe in reincarnation as a Buddhist, which is pretty much stock standard for Buddhism. But, eventually, the idea is that everyone will achieve an enlightened state of being and go to, or achieve nirvana, I should say.
So what is your real question? If I didn't answer your real question, please give me your real question.
My real question is, why is Christianity more valid or more real as a religion than any other religion? Not just Buddhism, any other religion.
Because the evidence is that Jesus Christ has a credibility, a reliability that nobody else does. So, please give me a better option to Jesus Christ.
Buddha lived 500 years before Jesus Christ. The great atheist philosophers lived 500 and 400 years before Jesus Christ. And they were also great human beings. And I want to become a great human being, and I don't believe in God. And
Jesus Christ taught a lot of great ethics. But then he went on and claimed to be God in human form, which means he's either a nut job, because the majority of people who claim to be God are locked in mental hospitals, or else he is who he claimed to be. But he's not this middle ground that you've chosen, a great guy. Because Jesus said, if you reject me, you go to hell. That's not a great guy, fellas.
my point is that Jesus was born in a time and a place where people claim to be messiahs. If Jesus had been born in India, I don't know if he would have claimed that he was the Son of God.
If you had been born in Papua New Guinea, where would you be? What would you believe? I don't have the faintest idea, neither do you. Because in reality, you weren't born in Papua New Guinea, neither was I.
There have been people who could be considered perfectly sane, if not good people, perfectly sane, who claim to be divinely inspired or even mandated as as
and if
rulers
someone
or
claims to be divinely
prophets.
inspired, you better not be a blind, gullible fool and say, okay, whatever you say. No, you better be a skeptic. But you better not be a cynic. Skepticism says, give me the evidence. Cynicism says, it's all baloney. That's garbage, being a cynic. Be a hard skeptic. And if anybody's going to claim to be God, you say, time out, I want to see the evidence that points to you being God. The evidence that Jesus Christ is God is a sinless life, amazing ethical teachings like the Sermon on the Mount, an incredible death where he's nailed to a wooden crossbeam. Instead of cursing his enemies, he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And fourthly, 3 days after he dies, he physically, bodily rises from the dead, and over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who see him at different times, in different places, risen from the dead.
Things that now we know are natural events are mandated by God because we didn't have the knowledge of why was everything happening. Why did it rain? Why did it not rain? Why did thunders came?
Jesus never said why it rained, so what on earth are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is the fact that there is a 2,000 year book that says that some people see this great human being being reborn again.
Yeah, it's called history. People saw Jesus Christ. They wrote down what they saw. Very good. It's called historical knowledge. It's not based on repeatability. It's based on eyewitness testimony. You can't repeat it. You can't have Abraham Lincoln assassinated again.
There are a couple 100 million people who are just as sure as you.
Good.
Just as sure as you.
You're right. And I'm not standing out here saying, you guys should believe in Jesus because I do. You'd be an idiot to believe in Jesus because I do. Instead, I'm standing out here saying, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the historical eyewitness accounts, and ask yourself, does the historical evidence point to Christ being the truth, or does it not? In the Gospel of Thomas, obviously, it's a pseudepigraphal gospel, if you study it. It's not written by Thomas. So somebody writes it. It contradicts the other Gospels. It contradicts the Old Testament because it's Gnostic. And Gnosticism teaches the physical is evil, the spiritual is good. Therefore, we discredit the physical. But when you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you will see the physical is very important. Your body's very important. It's a beautiful gift from God. Therefore, don't commit suicide. Therefore, don't demean your body. It's a precious gift from God. That's different from Gnosticism, the Gospel of Thomas. Okay? Thank you, ma'am, for your honesty.
Why are we regarding Jesus as having this universal truth instead of like seeing him as being a part of the culture, like where he was?
Good. Stuart, why do we view Jesus as having a universal truth instead of just being part of the culture?
Part of the ancient culture or our culture?
Both.
Ancient culture, it was because, look at, for example, the early church, the explosion of how many Jews became Christians overnight. They had more hoops to jump through to become Christians than we do today in our scientific age. They actually all of a sudden started to realize, oh my gosh, this resurrection occurred, and many were dying for that faith. And by doing so, almost 2/3 of the entire Roman Empire became Christian, right? And so they were completely, they would have been militant towards anything Christian related. That's why Christians were being killed. So it became universal in that sense. Obviously, the Roman Empire was basically universal back then. Today, the center of Christianity, unlike any other religion, has spread all over the world. So you look at India, then you look at Europe, now it's in China. Almost 100 million Christians through the underground church are Christian. 100 million people are Christians in China. Now in Latin America, the charismatic Christianity faith, hundreds of millions of Christians are becoming Christians. So that's a fascinating, great question, because Jesus speaks. Hold on, Brooke. Brooke, you've been speaking for like 2 hours, and you've had great questions, but just hold on. And so it's fascinating how Jesus travels cross-culturally, unlike, for example, Buddhism and Hinduism, which have always been centralized in India and the East. That's a fascinating sociological study about Jesus and culture.
All right, what about Islam?
Global religion.
It's the fastest growing religion.
That's a great question. I don't know about going to Mecca. I've read the Quran in English, but some hold to you have to read it in Arabic to really understand the miracle of the Quran. I do not admire the Prophet Muhammad for a number of reasons, but I don't dismiss Islam because of what happened on September 11th, 2001, right? So I have an ability to at least detach myself from all of the baggage that comes with a religion and think about the content of it. Because what Jesus did was say, it's not the quality of your faith. It's not how you're feeling. It's not even the quantity of your faith. Rather, it's the object of your faith. I can have a ton of good faith in a thin sheet of ice and walk across it and go plunging straight through. I can have a little faith in a lot of ice and go walking straight through. The question is, who is most trustworthy when it comes to the object of your faith? Who you trust?
My question was more geared towards what you were saying and how the validity of Christianity can be shown by how fast it's spread and how many people believe in it on a global scale. In every continent you have Christians. Is that not also the case with Islam? And if not, how can, and if it is, then how is Islam not also considered valid through its sheer size?
That's real simple. Anybody believes that Jesus Christ is the truth because of the spread of Christianity is naive, very unwise. All right? The validity of Christianity is based on the validity of Jesus Christ. Is he reliable or is he not? The validity of Buddhism is based on, is Siddhartha Gautama Buddha's philosophy reliable or not?
How can you prove that those eyewitnesses were reliable? In the same way that someone can walk into a courthouse right now and say, oh, I witnessed this crime, they get called to the stand, they can completely lie. Who's to say that that's not the situation with the apostles?
In the same way that you do it in a courtroom to determine whether eyewitnesses are reliable, you do it with the Gospels. Were they there when the crime occurred? Were they there to see Jesus
Christ? Is that not circular reasoning, considering that the apostles were the ones who wrote the Gospels? If I recall correctly, did they not?
Yeah. Tell me if this would hold up in the court. If something written a couple years after these people died, would that hold up in court to show that they were witnesses of the crime? If these writings attesting to it did not appear until like 20 to 30 years after they died.
But then add another layer of complexity to that. Would it still hold up in court if someone showed up 50 years after the crime occurred, 50 years after the incident in question occurred?
Because the Gospels are written by eyewitnesses or by people who knew the eyewitnesses. Secondly, there's a strong oral tradition. There were people who were alive 10, 20, 30 years after the Gospels were written who had seen Jesus. And after reading the Gospels, they said, yes, this did occur. For instance, in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul writes, Jesus rose from the dead. But if you don't believe me, go out and talk to over 500 people who saw Christ risen from the dead. In other words, he's giving them a way to verify the resurrection of Christ or to falsify it. He's saying, guys, there's still a lot of people alive who saw him. This is what I'm writing, but don't take it from me. Go out and talk to all those eyewitnesses who are still alive. That's the way you study history. You want to go back as close as you can to the eyewitness accounts, and then you want to find out, what did the eyewitnesses say? What did they report? Secondly, you want to study archaeology. Is Bethlehem, Nazareth, are they real places or not? And all you have is archaeology verifies Bethlehem, Nazareth, Jerusalem, Rome. Then you want to ask yourself, what's the manuscript evidence for the Gospels today? Today for the Gospels, we have over 5,200 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript dated from the 2nd through the 10th century, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree. So the evidence is those Gospels are historically reliable. So don't read them as the Word of God. You don't believe that. Instead, simply read them as history and ask yourself, does the historical evidence point to Christ being reliable, or does it not?
You need to look at history, you need to look at archaeology, but for some reason you miss that you need to look to human nature. You need to ask yourself what kind of creatures we are. The thing is that you find those answers in the Bible. But the thing is that humanity has also tried, sometimes by bloody inch, because of for example, I'm from Spain, because the Catholic Church were putting all science books in their list of prohibited books. The thing is that we have come to realize that we are animals, that we live in an earth that wasn't created 6,000 years ago, but 4,000 million years ago, that most of the actual facts that the Bible asserts are false because they don't correspond with the facts. And you have a big problem here because your main source of authority is claiming...
Where is any scientific literature in the Bible? Give me where scientific language is used in the Bible.
No, of course, because
nowhere. So it's impossible for science to contradict the Bible because there's no science in the Bible to contradict. It's that simple, guys. Come on, you're good university students. Think it through. No biology, no chemistry, no physics, no astronomy anywhere in the Bible. No, logic is philosophy.
If I grow a finger back in a science lab, there's no way a scientist can ultimately call that a miracle. They're going to call it a scientifical miracle, some type of complete anomaly that will never occur again. So you cannot test. It's impossible to test a miracle. Supernaturally, I believe you believe in the supernatural. I believe you probably believe in a virgin birth of the universe, like I believe in a virgin birth of a human, because you, as an atheist or agnostic, you believe this universe popped into something out of nothing.
Do you believe that God is all-knowing and all-powerful?
Yes.
Do you believe that he is cruel?
No.
How can an all-knowing and all-powerful God that presides over an earth with so many atrocities on it not be cruel?
Very good question. Wow. Oh, God made me do it. False. Totally false. God gave me a hand and a free will. He gave me this hand for the purpose of respecting this gentleman and loving him. But because I have a free will, I can take this hand, haul back, and smack him. That is evil.
Yeah.
So, the reason that there is evil is because God has chosen to partially limit his power by giving me a free will, which means everything that happens on planet Earth is not God's will. It is not God's will that I haul back and hit him. But because I have a free will, I'm capable of doing that.
So could God just not have created a universe where free will did not exist if it meant that there would be a better universe where people were not hurt, where people lived in harmony and prosperity all the time? Because I don't know about you, but I'd much rather live in a world where I don't have to think about what tie to choose in the morning. Like free will is completely out the window if it means that the Holocaust didn't happen.
Good.
If it means that the Rwandan genocide didn't happen. If all of that stuff, if I had an option to make all that stuff never happen, I'd take it, even if it meant I had to sacrifice my free will. Could God, being all-powerful, not have just made that a reality?
That is why you have to be very careful and define what we mean when we say God is all-powerful. God cannot make square circles. God cannot make
But you bend the laws of physics.
God cannot make 2 + 2 = 5. When we say that God is all-powerful, what we mean is he has all the power over creation. But he's created a universe where 2 + 2 = 4, not 5. He's created a universe where circles are not the same as squares.
He's only all powerful in the sense of creation. So he's just not. So he's not just all powerful in the sense of creation.
The Bible does not say God is all powerful, and that means that God can make square circles and God can make 2 + 2 = 5. False. It's not saying that. It is saying that God, who is just and good, can do whatever he chooses to do that is just and good. He can create a universe where there is no cruelty, but if he creates a universe where there is no free will, what else do you wipe out? Love. If a young lady tells you, I love you, and you're getting excited, and she's been telling you that for a month, and tonight your father calls you and says, son, I've been paying her $1,000 a week to love you. I think you'd be a little bummed out.
See, now here's the thing.
Because love, in order to be real, has to be free. Otherwise, it ain't love.
So could God not, once again, it all just boils back to could God not have just done this? Could God not have just made a universe where free will didn't encompass the ability of humans to do evil?
No, that is impossible. I don't have to love him. I don't have to hate him. I don't have to be racist. I don't have to respect him. I choose. And that is part of the awesome responsibility of being not a German shepherd, not a computer, a human being created in the image of God.
Are you married?
Yes, I'm married.
Yeah. So does your wife cover her head when she prays? And does she not speak in church?
No.
Oh, so how short is her hair then? Because, Paul said she should cut her hair short if she doesn't cover her head when she prays.
That's right.
And
so he also says that I'm supposed to give people a holy kiss, and I've not been kissing any men recently. So what you have to learn to do is
Bible, you have to put it into cultural context.
That's right. You got to study culture when it gets to the difficult passages in the Bible. Very good.
Do you think religion should have a place in the government?
Do I think that religion should have a place in the government? I am very grateful that Stuart's here and that he can come and help me here. All right. So, first point. I am very grateful that I live in a country where there is separation of church and state. It's part of why we started the United States, because of governmental religion in Europe. All right? So separation of church and state. That's the first point, and I celebrate that and support it. Second point. I am sick and tired of supposedly open-minded people acting like, well, I really don't believe anything. No. Well, I don't really have a faith. No. We all have faith, meaning by that, we all have a worldview. Meaning by that, we all have a way we view other people, a way we view racism, sexism, murder, stealing, cheating, lying, lack of justice in the courts, as a high-paid lawyer gets a criminal out scot-free. We all have a view of that. Now, the view that we have can never be scientifically proved. Instead, it's a logical, hopefully rational, hopefully based on experience and observation, worldview, view of reality. So, therefore, when I put my faith in Christ, I'm going to be involved in government. And obviously my faith in Christ will profoundly affect the way I vote, the policies I seek to support, equal housing opportunity, against racism. I will support that because I am convinced to the root of my being that racism is wrong. So yes, obviously my faith impacts my view of government, the way I vote. Stuart, how do you work that through?
Well, if you look at North Korea and South Korea from space, you're going to see a lot of darkness in North Korea and a lot of light in South Korea. What's the main issue there? Politics. So Christians are obviously supposed to be engaged in politics, or any country that can end up happening to if things really go amok.
That has to do something with it.
Hold on here, bro. Just 1 second. So yes, we're supposed to be involved in politics in many ways. It's fascinating. Was your second part? He started talking about worship. Was he talking about some people worship politics, or where were you headed?
I don't know. I have ADD. I couldn't hear you.
Same here.
Yeah, I heard him.
Yeah.
Financial aid did the.
Hold on. Just wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. All right. We'll get to you in a second. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, never mind.
I don't know what you
You're
said.
talking over her. White males talk over women plenty here, okay? Hold on.
I didn't hear anything you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so I was just talking about how if you look at North Korea, South Korea, then you clearly, from space, you see North Korea is completely dark, South Korea is light. It's just an example in terms of being involved in politics is important so you don't head down the road of potential total suppression, oppression from a higher authority. So that's why I believe Christians, yes, should be involved in politics. We should not be worshiping politics. We have plenty of people at our church who are basically saying, we're not coming to church because of mask mandates, because of things you guys have done wrong. We need to be fighting against the government and just focusing on fighting against the government to get certain types of freedoms. We totally disagree with that. We say if the church is the church, it focuses on growing people up in the faith and understanding what Christian ethics are, then you're going to get what we've always gotten throughout history. The church started hospitals. The church started law. The church changed the world in so many areas when it comes to slavery, women's rights, and that's what we want to focus on rather than just focusing on, hey, let's deal with mass. Hey, let's deal with just Roe v. Wade and just idolize that in every kind of way. So there's a balance there.
Okay.
It's a great question.
Are there manuscript errors in the Greek manuscripts of the New Testament? Yes, there are. A lot of them. But they are so small, so inconsequential. They don't change anything. And the line of thinking that says, well, if the Bible is the inspired word of God, then God had to guarantee that there would be no discrepancies. Hogwash. God never says that my word is going to be preserved in writing without any discrepancies. Never is that claim made. So it's a philosophical jump that certain New Testament professors make when they say, if the Bible is inspired by God, there can be no manuscript variance. Baloney. We've got 20 to 25,000 manuscripts of the New Testament. To demand that there not even be any slight variances is highly naive. What I'm glad that the Christian church has not yet done is to wipe out all manuscripts that contradict one particular manuscript, because that's exactly what happened in 100 years after Muhammad, or even 50 years after Muhammad. All the variants in the Quran were burned, and one specific Quran was embraced. Gosh, I'm real glad that nobody did that to the New Testament. I'm real glad that we have a plethora of manuscripts that give us an incredibly high degree of certainty that we really have. Yes, sir.
This isn't like a loaded question, but if you didn't believe in a God and you think murder is fine, you don't have any compassion for other people, if not through God, just drinks.
No, false. Because my experience is I have this ability to love, I know that atheism is wrong. Because atheism does not allow for real compassion. It allows for a biological instinct, but that's all.
Why does love have to come from God?
Because love is a choice, a free will decision to work for his well-being.
It's an equation of familiarity over time. That's how you
Baloney. Love is a free decision to work for his well-being.
So then how is it through God?
I don't have to decide to love him. I'm not just a chemical reaction. There's a spirit. There's a soul that I
Why
have.
does it have to be tied to God, specifically?
Because if there is no God, all of reality is matter and energy.
What if there's something else?
Okay.
All of reality is matter and energy if there is no God. That's all there is, a chemical reaction. Because you guys don't live that way.
We live exactly
No,
that.
you don't live that way.
No.
You are longing for a woman to really love you, which means not you can provide for me financially, which is not, hey, you know something, your body turns me on. You long for her to genuinely care for you, and you want to genuinely care for her, I hope.
Makes that not
Which shows that there's more to you than just an instinct.
You said that we're all
a bunch of ants on a rock through space.
If there is no God.
If there is no God, then we're
Correct.
all a bunch of ants on a rock through space.
That's right.
But if there is a God, then that implies that eternity is real, which means we're even more irrelevant.
No,
Because
it doesn't.
if eternity is real, everything we do right now is completely meaningless. It's the same way like a cockroach is to the rest of the universe. It's
No. If there is
it's
a God-
speck of a speck of a speck.
It matters in dealing with reality. It matters in responding to God, and it matters in responding to people.
If he was starving, the only reason you'd feed him is because you think there's a God?
No, because compassion is real. And the only way justice and compassion can be real is if there is some mind prior to the human mind who creates and defines the values of love and justice. Guys, if there is no mind prior to the human mind, who creates and defines justice and love?
No one does.
Oh, come on. You know better than that. That's you.
How do you, if we have free will and we're not drawn to one specific definition and it changes constantly, how do we find the right one that's God's will?
By searching for God. In order for me to get to know you, I got to listen to you. I can't just go out and make you up. I can't just say, okay, God, strike me with lightning and I'll believe in you. That's about as dumb as me saying to him, hey, buddy, if you really want me to get to know you, you got to do something spectacular. No, if I care about him, I'm going to work at getting to know him. It's no different. It's called developing a relationship, guys. That's what it's called. If you don't learn to develop relationships, you're going to be a very lonely person, very isolated.
Let's say that, sure, God is real, and because God is real, suddenly everything we do matters. That's just blatantly false. Everything we do is still one decision of 100 billion people who all exist in heaven and hell. And since God is beyond time as well, it's of however many humans that will ever exist. It's still completely meaningless. It's just slightly less meaningless.
If he is an accidental collection of atoms, if I am an accidental collection of atoms, he is ultimately meaningless, and I am ultimately meaningless. Which means it doesn't matter what I do to him ultimately, and it doesn't matter what he does to me ultimately. You choose, and I choose, and it's meaningless.
That is exactly what we're saying.
Okay, good.
Why does
now,
God change that?
if there is a God who created him and gave him innate value, purpose, if there is a God who created a value of compassion and justice, then it is ultimately significant how I treat him. And if I am disrespectful to him, if I murder him, that is evil. But if I love him and respect him and promote his life and treat him well, that is ultimately good. That's
good in which context? To who?
Reality. That is real.
By that logic, it's still ultimately insignificant because reality is far too big for your actions to matter.
You're not in India right now, sir. You're not in China. You're in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So now you got to live your life in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
No, so if you're dealing
That's
with
reality for you.
then I have compassion that comes from chemical reactions, not some mythical, my imaginary friend from when I was 4 years old. I get that. I feel happy. He feels happy. That's all that matters. That's where it ends.
All right.
Why does God
live
need
it
to
out.
be in that equation?
Live it out. And if you're going to live it out, it means despair. And if you don't despair of life, you're intellectually dishonest.
How do you propose that as different people like discuss like different relationships and like have different effects on each other, and like how people are perceived differently based upon their Christian values and stuff like that? So like how would you propose talking to someone who is not on the same path as you?
Listen to him. Understand what he says, respond appropriately, listen to him, understand his philosophical presuppositions that he's making, and then respond appropriately. So if you're an atheist, I'm going to respect that, and I'm going to say, okay, now here's the evidence that God exists. If you're an agnostic, I'm going to say, okay, agnosticism is an intellectual option, but you can't live out agnostic. You know, maybe he's here, maybe he's not. Maybe he's here, maybe he's not. Well, right about now, I got to make a decision. Either he is here or he's not here. Either I stop swinging where his handsome face begins, or I keep swinging. Okay? So agnosticism is an intellectual option. It's a practical impossibility. You can't live an agnostic life because you got to make ethical decisions every day. Do you cheat? Are you honest? Do you lie? Do you tell the truth? Do you rape, date rape, or not? You can't live an agnostic life. Are you racist or are you not racist? Are you going to defend abused children, or are you just going to let people abuse children? You've got to make decisions. You've got to make your life. You have no choice. That's why agnosticism is not an option. But I will listen to the agnostic and try and point that out to them. You can't consistently be agnostic. And then if you're Hindu or Buddhist or Muslim, I'm going to agree with you on certain points, and then I'm going to say, but wait a second, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, Jesus Christ. Is the evidence supporting Buddha or Christ? Muhammad or Christ? The avatars of Hinduism or Christ? So that's the way I seek to listen and understand what people believe. When I'm talking to a white racist, I'm going to say, why are you a racist? And inevitably, they're going to say, well, it's just because the family I was born in, it's my neighborhood. We're racist. And I say, okay, fine. But in light of the fact that God created all human beings in his image, don't you think racism might be wrong? Because we all come from God. He created us. So therefore, to have a racist attitude is evil. It's sinful. But then if my liberal white Christian friend says, oh, no. I went to an Ivy League school, and we intellectuals realize that racism is wrong. I'm going to pin him. I'm going to say, okay, fine. Why? Are you going to tell me that racism is wrong because the intellectual elite at Harvard or Yale say it's wrong? Give me a break. I could give a rip about what the intellectual elite say. The question is, what's real? And if you're a human being, not an accident, and if you've been created by God for a purpose, then my racist attitude is sinful. And so is yours. So I try to listen to people, understand where they're coming from, and then respond. Does that make sense? Thank you, sir, for raising that issue.
Is God operating on a different universe than the laws that abide this universe? Is he operating in his own dimension?
Well, obviously, yes. He's a spirit.
So then what evidence is there of that?
Pardon?
What evidence can you draw from looking at how the universe functions and how atoms exist? How can you look at something and say this has always existed? There's no start point or end point.
Design, order, demand an intelligent mind. I tried to play basketball at Davidson. I made the team, but I was the worst player on the team. I can promise you, sir, it's very hard to get a ball through a hoop 10 feet off the ground. It takes a lot of design, a lot of coordination. You guys obviously know that. You got the best basketball team in the country right now, right? So, design, order, complexity demands an intelligent mind. It just doesn't happen by accident.
Contradicts how far we've come from an evolutionary basis.
No, sir. Evolution as an origin says, behind the process, there's no intelligent mind. And the Bible insists, no. Behind the process, whatever the process is, be it evolution or whatever, there's got to be an intelligent mind. It's that simple.
I mean, it doesn't really require an intelligent backing.
Where is the creative mechanism in evolution?
It's all adaptation.
Exactly. There is no creative mechanism in evolution. It's all adaptation, right? So therefore, the philosophical, not the scientific, the philosophical question is it more reasonable to believe that behind the process there's an intelligent mind, or is it more reasonable to believe that behind the process there's no intelligent mind, it just comes about by chance?
The question is whether or not you believe in adaptation or evolution as a process. You can make a philosophical argument whether or not you believe it's like a creative being or not behind that, but I think that's up to you. But my question that I have is, what are your thoughts on all morality coming from a higher being such as God? Because from my perspective, I do not like that thought process, because for me, it absolves you as a human being from making all moral decisions while still allowing you to claim an infinite amount of power.
I have power because I'm a human being created in the image of God, and he has given me a limited amount of power. Verbal power, financial power, physical power. But I am not all powerful. I am not God. God is all powerful. I am not. Second point. In order for there to be morality, you've got to have a mind. This here, this grass, this tree, no ability to make a distinction between good and evil, justice and injustice. You've got to have a mind. So the question is, if the human mind is the oldest mind around, then it's the human mind who creates justice and love. But that means it's relative, because this human mind and this human mind and this human mind and this human mind will disagree. According to rational thinking, as I think, it's far more plausible to believe there's an eternal mind, God, who creates the value of justice, creates the value of love. Those are real values. They're not created by human beings. They're not subjective. They're not relative.
You can make claim that your God is something that's eternal, that is objective. Right. However, no matter how powerful or objective that being is, you have to make the concession that human beings are not that powerful and that we ourselves are faulty. So even though the God has sayings on what is acceptable or not, that must be interpreted and passed through a human being. So as soon as it comes through that human being, it is now faulty, just as all our relative reasoning is.
I am faulty, but the value of justice is not faulty. I am faulty, but the value of love is not faulty.
That value is defined by each of us as individuals. So you might bring your definition from a higher being, but because it is coming from you, you have admitted yourself that you are not God, so you cannot tap into his infinite wisdom or power. Therefore, you yourself are also faulty.
You said our God. We're not talking about the Christian God. We're talking about some type of transcendent source where you get objective morality. So it doesn't come from us. If there is a mind, if there's an immaterial form of justice, we believe there's an immaterial God of some type, saying that this is directly right or wrong. That God has to be personal in order to decide what is right or wrong. That God has to be immaterial in order to create time and space. That God needs to be all-powerful because it's a pretty powerful act, I would say. And then as a reasonable God, able to reason, he creates us as reasoning agents so there's no misinterpretation.
Now, it is hard for me, however powerful that God must be, to label that God's actions as justice, or for them to have the sole definition of what is justice, what is injustice, because those are two sides of the same coin. So my question is, how can I label that God as justice when their definition puts me at harm, or when their definition comes into conflict with me and my being?
Clearly, to me at least, God gave us a conscience, which actually the Bible talks about. That conscience, even Immanuel Kant agreed with. That conscience came from a source that is cross-cultural in terms of what we are obligated to do, what we should do. There are duties and values for us to follow. That makes way more sense than perhaps our evolutionary upbringing created in us a type of you should do this or should do that in order to really pass on the gene pool. I'll give you one example. One great atheist philosopher said, "We descended from apes, so let us love one another." Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Somewhat. Yes.
No. Zero sense. Well published, let's just say. Shazlov, he's a philosopher. I would read him, I would think about that, and I would pursue also, this gentleman over here said that evolution explains everything. Evolution does not explain why we seek after truth. No animal is seeking after truth. Everything about evolution is survival of the fittest. Protect yourself, protect your tribe. There is nothing philosophically or even in our experience that says, why in the world do we seek after truth? Well, it goes back to that mind. If there's a creative God creating us creatively as human beings, we're going to seek after truth, not just survival of the fittest and our own gene pool.
While I do not believe that truth exists, I think that the search of that truth is what brings us all here together in moments such as these. And while I have a hard time of believing that there is a truth such as on justice, it's just because when your truth conflicts with my truth, that tension must now be resolved. So if you believe that your truth is the sole definition and the sole purpose of what his life is, and I also hold that same belief in my own truth, that now justifies us to commit violence against one another. Because there can only be one truth that is acceptable. So I might claim your actions are abhorrent, and you might claim my actions are abhorrent as well. So rather than communicating and resolving that tension and coming to an agreed decision where we can both live in unison, we now commit acts of violence to resolve to decide whose truth is more powerful.
And there is absolutely no way that I'm going to say to the KKK, oh, it's all relative, buddy. So if you want to be racist, you go right ahead. No, I am convinced that the value of justice is real because there's a just God who's created it, which means I am going to look the KKK in the face and say, I am sorry. You are wrong. All human beings have equal value, not because I'm a liberal, educated white guy. No. All human beings are valuable because we all are created in the image of God. And God creates us with purpose and meaning. So I'm sorry, my KKK friend, you're wrong in your racism.
You have some kind of proof that your religion, as opposed to others, is correct or the one people should follow?
Part of the challenge of being a student is that you follow the evidence wherever it leads. And so you're asking, well, what's the evidence that Christianity is true? It certainly isn't Christians, right? It's the content of Christianity. It's not just the Sermon on the Mount and what Jesus taught about ethics. You have to look at the content, not the abuse of what was been said. So, for example, if Jesus says, love your enemies, and then you look at the Crusades or the Spanish Inquisition and you ask yourself, what happened there, right? It's not necessarily easy to say, well, because all of these horrible things were done in the name of Christianity, then I can dismiss it. Let me ask you, is it rational to dismiss something by its misuse?
So I was asking you why I should believe that the Christian God exists rather than, say, Hinduism, which is a much older religious text, or say, I don't know, Sumerian gods. Why are they not real?
Right.
Why is the Greek Hellenic pantheon not real? I could go on, but I wasn't asking about misuse, to be clear. I was asking about proof over other religions, not even over atheistic belief, but proof over other religious structures as to why I should believe in Christianity and not, those.
Okay. Historically, right, that you place Jesus of Nazareth there over 2,000 years ago, living, dying, and then obviously the big claim of Christianity, of whether it holds weight, is whether or not Jesus rose from the dead, right? And so that's a big claim. And you're saying, okay, well, what's the evidence for that truth claim, right? That all of these eyewitnesses, all of these people died. They were killed claiming to have seen Jesus risen from the dead. And not only did that transform the Roman Empire, that went around the world in an incredible way. Because where's the center of Christianity now? It's not... I know you brought up Hinduism and Buddhism. It's like they have a very much clear center. Islam has a clear center. Christianity has gone all over the world. It's not, the center of it isn't here in the United States, and the center of it isn't in Rome. It could be in South America, it could be in Southeast Asia, but it has gone all over the world, and it appeals to people's minds because of how historic it is, because of how much evidence there is for its reliability. I'm going to hand it over to Stuart to think about that.
So, character of Christ. Obviously, he was not a lunatic. He was not the Branch Davidians, David Koresh type of leader, or the Jim Jones type of leader. No, he lived a perfect life. He never spoke a word out of place if you read scripture. Secondly, the claims he made, I am who I am, appealing to clearly this call of God that you get out of the Jewish tradition. He also claims to forgive sins. Also, every time people would worship him, he would receive the worship, unlike Paul or others who would tear their clothes and say, I am not God. Then the Gospels and their reliability in terms of 5,800 manuscripts showing the photographs that were written, which is unheard of in terms of in every historical department across the country. If you talk to most academics, take Bart Ehrman, for example, who's the most famous atheist historian when it comes to something like the Gospels and the Bible. Even he admits, if there wasn't the supernatural in the Bible, in the Gospels, every single church historian, every single archaeologist, secular that is, would say, absolutely, this is Peter. You can take this to the bank. Clearly this happened. Then lastly, Rob already hit on it, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Everything hinges upon that. You go to Hinduism, for example, nothing historical. There's no historical moment that had to happen in order to make the claim that Hinduism is correct. Christianity is the only religion that bears the weight of this happened or it didn't happen. And if it happened, Christianity is right. It occurred and Christianity makes sense and is true. If it didn't happen, discard it. How come you became agnostic?
Mostly because I grew up Christian. Yeah, I was completely Christian, fully, probably from the same denomination you are, I'm guessing. We were very focused on mission work and preaching as well. Long story short, I found a lot of their beliefs petty and incompatible with the idea of a loving God. And further than that, the more I looked into it, the more I realized there was no concrete physical evidence or like truly resonant historical evidence for the resurrection. I do believe Jesus Christ likely existed in history. I definitely believe he was like a real guy, so to speak. But I do not believe that there is enough concrete proof of the existence of resurrected Jesus, much less God, the Abrahamic God, to say I'm a Christian anymore. And if I did convert back to the Abrahamic faith, it would be to Judaism because they're way cooler.
Why do you believe the God of the Bible is not loving?
Because a God who would condemn people for, for example, being gay or breaking one of a number of fairly archaic rules. I mean, if you go back to the Old Testament, and I know a lot of Christians like hand-wave the Old Testament as being washed away by Jesus, a God that tells a girl to marry her rapist is incredibly unsettling to me as an entity, and I just can't believe that like a cosmic power like that would be so concerned over, petty things like who you have sex with or like what you watch and read. It seems very like human in scope.
So why would you be a Jew then?
Because, like I said, I've talked to rabbis. I have family members who are Jewish. My godfather's Jewish.
But the Torah is all the Old Testament. So everything you just said that you don't like about God, you'd be accepting and become a Christian. I mean, a Jew. That you don't like about God.
Jewish people have more text than that and a great deal of scholarship on the matter. But like, for another thing, I think a lot of Christians tend to be much more literalist about the Bible, which like is unacceptable to me as a someone who's interested in history. I just don't think that like for example, Tower of Babel, to me that's clearly a metaphorical story about the perils of trying to elevate yourself to God's level. But to agnostics and atheists who have studied history, we know how language developed. And literalist Christians try to claim that it is a literal story about things that literally happened, when that could not be more obviously disproven by the actual development of language and the archaeological record from Africa and the migration of the Bantu-speaking people.
You discount the Bible because of biblical literalists. Your favorite band member, if he or she started living a very hypocritical life, if he or she took part in some great theft or murder, would you discount the band and not like the band anymore?
I mean, if I did still like the band, I would. For one thing, I have done that. I mean, there was a band where the lead singer was revealed to be a groomer, and I stopped listening to them because I didn't want them to get my money. So yeah, I did.
But why in the world, though, just because there's some biblical literalists and just because there's some hypocrites, there's hypocrisy in every single group, would you turn away from the Christian faith?
Because you tell me I'm going to hell if I don't believe in it.
I'm telling you, how am I telling you you're going to hell?
Isn't that an inherent belief of yours?
No, not even close. Jesus Christ died for his enemies.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ welcomed a murderer into heaven on a deathbed conversion on the cross.
Yeah, exactly.
The character of Christ, the love for people who are very much unlike him. I mean, what other faith leader comes even close to that, saying, love your enemies, turn the other cheek. In every situation, you have to forgive 70 times 7, which is a complete number. No other religious leader comes even close to that.
It's like a protection racket. It's like the mafia. Accept my help or you go to hell. Like, it's very, it's an unsettling concept, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. It's rather worshiping something here on this planet, or we're getting outside of ourselves and loving an all-loving God and wanting to spend eternity with him. But I disagree with you because there's nothing in the Bible that says God is sending you to hell unless you obey these commandments. No, it's all by grace, especially in the New Testament, like you alluded to, but even in the Old Testament. So it makes clear sense to me where he is respecting and honoring our free will and decision making by saying, if you don't want to live in heaven with me, which is perfect, beautiful goodness, then you're going to live separate from me, and separation from him is a total paucity, a lack of, a disintegration of that goodness into a living hell. And I believe people are living in hell in this day and age. People who are going on and having a type of cynical attitude and a type of, say, just constant gossip and constant resentment. Well, that's the beginning of hell right there. Wouldn't you agree? If that just is played out over and over again and it becomes part of your own identity?
Yeah, but none of my friends live like that either. We live good lives here, and like I distinctly do not believe that the rejection of Jesus Christ should automatically, condemn you to a life without goodness or anything like that. Like, I believe I have a moral code, and I'm also very tired of Christians telling me that there's no reason for me to have a moral code.
Does everybody need to have your moral code?
No, they don't, but I really only associate with people who, have similar, ideals to mine, or
Isn't that tremendously exclusive and judgmental?
Not really. My ideas are pretty general. I mean, kind of the do unto others thing. I do like that verse.
So in the Roman Empire, moral even, many would say, like Josephus would say, if you have a baby that is taxing the rest of the family, you would discard it.
Oh, hell no,
and so why wouldn't I discard my child today, for example, if they're living very unruly? Because that's just my own truth, my own moral standard. It fit with the Roman Empire, so why can't it fit today? Why can't I live that way?
You
wouldn't judge me for that, would you?
No, it's fine. Yeah, you can live the way, as long as you're not harming other people. That's kind of the basic,
So discarding my child because she's really a tax on our family?
Someone.
Because we might starve to death if I keep that child in my family.
That's harming someone.
That's
You're
harming?
harming the child, yes. Like,
Okay.
I don't see how you're...
But it's harming us, and we're all going to pass
But the
away
child-
if I keep the child here. If I keep the child within the family.
There are ways
See,
to...
there's different... I don't know. The harm principle makes very little sense to me. Because the vast majority of the U.S. thinks that pornography is good, great, and even good for marriage. But you have women, actually, it's the number one way to get STDs, and sex trafficking has a field day with pornography. So to see how the harm principle is totally different, many will say, oh, that's good, that's healthy. But then many will really look into it and say, wait a second, these women are getting into serious physical trouble. And so the harm principle is very ambiguous, and it really is subjective.
Like, I believe that there are things that people can generally agree upon as harmful.
Generally agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so why, if I am in the Roman Empire...
We're in the United States of America in 2022.
But you're still saying your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth. So
Yes.
I believe that's even worse, because now you have so many different truths, and some of those truths can be tremendous, deleterious, to totally harmful to different people. And it's so exclusive. See, Jesus Christ, and specifically Paul in Galatians 3:28, talked about how there was neither slave nor free, neither male nor female. Females were treated like dirt. They had no citizenship. Slaves, obviously, even lower than females. Children were discarded. There was very little abortion because it was so dangerous, but infanticide was everywhere.
Ethics is a messy business. Like, Cicely Bach, I believe in, care ethics for a lot of things. Like, I believe in basically trying to maximize, social good for people. And I don't think that it's possible to say if we all follow one truth, we'll be okay. There's too much variance in the human population for that.
Don't call it God. Some transcendent source out there, not the Christian, has nothing to do with Christianity, where we have moral obligation to say that we are obligated to act in a certain way, to love in a certain way, and to understand we all agree that this is evil, that we have duties to do so, and that we even say to somebody else, hey, my daughter right here, who just smacked this other kid on the playground, hey, you should not have done that. You should not have done that, and that's not just our family personal truth. No, the babysitter over here would agree with me and say, hey, you should not have done that. And so that's appealing to some type of moral obligation outside of ourselves.
Yes, I guess I define the common good as what maximizes health and happiness for, the most people, but that's kind of utilitarian, but if you want a really quick explanation, yeah.
Utilitarianism was, hey, we got to go ahead and kill this specific person in the Roman Colosseum in order to appease the slaves so they wouldn't rebel and take over the Roman Empire. So it's better for the greater good. Let's just kill this guy. So that's utilitarianism writ large.
Like, you keep bringing up the Roman Empire. We're not in the Roman Empire.
Sure.
It's not a good metaphor for, like, our current day and age.
Okay, so we've just improved, right? Let's talk about, I was in Haiti recently. Let's talk about their ethics and moral customs, right? Let's talk about different forms of genital mutilation that is considered totally good and ethical. You wouldn't judge them, and that's today. That ain't ancient Rome. That ain't ancient Rome. That's today. Why is that bad? You wouldn't judge them.
Of course I would.
Why? That's so judgmental.
You're speaking from the perspective of one of the men who, like, presumably is like a figure of authority in that place. Because I'm sure the women.
Me as a white male would go down to Africa and judge them for those types of what they believe is ethical.
Yes, women have complaints. There are lots of organizations working to end female genital mutilation. And the fact that, like, you act as though it's some grand consensus that this is a good thing shows that this is a very, like, black and white.
Honor killings is a good thing to many of those villages. Honor killings is smart in order to keep the community together.
There are people trying to end honor killings. Like, people in the cultures have criticism of the larger culture.
What makes them right? Why is that wrong?
I don't know why I, like, have to defend this as, like, a harm reduction thing. Like,
because you started with your truth and morality is your truth and morality, and you would never infringe upon somebody else.
I did
so
not.
why are you infringing? Why are you infringing?
I never said I would never infringe upon somebody else. I just said that is, like, I qualified it with that is true to an extent.
Yeah.
I believe that people are allowed to disagree with me about, like, whether it's okay for a guy in a desperate situation to shoplift a loaf of bread. I think that's okay. Someone else might not think that's okay. We both have a point there.
Yes.
We can debate that. But there are things that you can't debate. Like, there are things that are just straight up wrong. And I already qualified myself with that, so I don't understand why you keep bringing up these other examples.
So you would say, like, for example, when the Nazis were trying to say we're just following orders, that's all we were doing.
Yeah, unacceptable.
Well, they were just following orders, though.
Why is that an excuse?
Because their culture at the time and our culture could easily slip in.
Okay, you're still arguing with a version of me that I never, like...
I'm just trying to show you kind of a little bit of the contradictory nature of what you're talking about, because you're flip-flopping back and forth.
That's not true. I specifically qualified it with, like, people should not harm one another, which is what I'm not getting about the argument. Like, I think you're arguing with a kind of a straw man here. Like, I did not... Yeah. But, like, I did not present that as my beliefs.
What was your belief? You got to clarify it.
Yeah, I'll clarify it.
I heard you go back and forth a couple times.
I believe that freedom is important. Like, I believe people should be free to, like, have their own perspective and believe what they believe, only to the extent that it does not do serious harm to the happiness and health of other people. Like, that's kind of my take on the matter, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't really see, like...
But how do you define happiness and harm, then?
That's something that the legal system wrestles with every day. I mean, I'm in an ethics class right now, and I think that, like, there are a lot of questions as to what, like, happiness and harm are in the current day, but I think those can be answered through, like, debate and careful consideration. And I think there are some things like female genital mutilation that are obviously very wrong.
I just think you need to be careful, because saying those are absolutely wrong, well, where are you getting that absolute? I mean, again, I know one professor, for example, from Notre Dame, who went down to Africa, and she was a secular atheist humanist, strong feminist, and she went down there and she said, hey, look, there was genital mutilation going on, and I went down there to attack it, and I went down there to change things, but I came back disillusioned because I started to realize that's their culture, and that's how they do things. So who am I as a white woman, incredibly educated, going down here telling them to change? What, just because I'm ethnocentric? I'm an American? And she came back, and see how she was consistent there? She was willing to say, I'm being consistent, but I'm going to say, this is kind of a brute fact. that this is just how it should be.
I do disagree with her because she could have helped. There are organizations in Africa working to end FGM, and she could have worked with them. I mean, if she wasn't already, in an attempt to help women and girls who are affected by this. People in general, because intersex people can also be affected.
So maybe we just evolved more morally than those African villages.
No,
we're just better people, kind of.
We're individuals. That's the thing.
We're individuals. They're individuals too, though.
Yes, we're affected by our culture.
Okay.
Like American culture, has for years had a lot of kind of messed up moral considerations.
But now we're better than them, though.
Slowly, we're not better than them inherently. There's nothing that makes. We are all individuals, right?
Okay.
There's nothing that makes one culture inherently better than the other because cultures are constantly changing and shifting. Someone could end FGM next year if the right person was able to basically make the arguments for why it is wrong. Cultures are not stagnant. That's the thing. Saying American culture is better. We had slavery up until very recently.
That's a very good point. So the legal system in the U.S. was started through Judeo-Christian worldview and ethics.
The word Judeo-Christian is nonsensical.
Judeo-Christian is used endlessly, a ton in our country today. Okay, we'll use Judeo-Christian then. The law that started in our country was started by our founders who believed in moral obligation and not moral subjectivity, moral obligation, objectivity, and moral duties and oughts. And so that's why when you go into a court of law, for example, there is a type of law that transcends culture. And you keep bringing it down to culture, and that's what makes me nervous because, again, another study recently, again out of Notre Dame, talked about how 38% of high school students now say that bombing the World Trade Center is okay because that was those specific people's truth. And you said earlier, your truth is your truth. Excuse me, high school. Okay, I'll show you the Notre Dame study. I'll send it to you if you want. They're not saying it's good for them. They're just saying it was good for them. And who am I to judge them for doing that type of terrorism? That's what I'm saying. See that? So they're being consistent. So I'm going to allow them to do what they are going to do.
You're allowed to have cultural distinctions as long as you're not murdering a ton of people. How is this inconsistent? Am I wrong?
Why is murder wrong? Objectively.
What?
That's your subjective opinion. We just went through this. Honor killings are happening.
If it's just a criteria that we're talking about, here's the criteria for why murder is wrong. First of all, it's not because me and you say it's wrong. It's not. It's not because of how rational or logical we are. It's not. Murder's not wrong because your ethics professor told you so. Murder's not even wrong because the court system here in the United States says murder is wrong, right? We're saying, okay, there's something transcendent, something outside of culture, country, around the world. It's called empathy, but some places don't value empathy as much as other places. And so who are we to go into those places and say, murder is wrong to them if they say, well, that individual is no longer useful, that individual is no longer competent, or their quality of life is lower than ours, so we have to kill them, right? Then you have to really think and really ask yourself, okay, can I tell them that murder is wrong just because of what I've learned at a college or just because of what I've gotten from a book? Or am I going to be able to look around me and ask, okay, logically, I am appealing to something objective, something transcendent, to say that murder is wrong 100 times out of 100 times. It doesn't matter if it's some old person, it doesn't matter if it's unborn, it doesn't matter if it's someone in the middle of life just going through their day and they no longer, people feel like, well, you did me wrong, so I'm just gonna kill you to get back at you as an honor killing, if that's what was called earlier. That's wrong. That doesn't, I don't care if you're in America or in India or wherever you are, an honor killing is wrong, right? Doesn't that make sense?
You're trying to talk about this as like, oh, well, you're going to go over there and tell them they're wrong? Like, no, I don't have the time nor the money to do that. But if asked, I would say, yeah, I think that's wrong. Like, if someone from the culture asked me, I would say, well, yes, I do think it's wrong that you murdered that person. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're free to disagree with other people's, like, beliefs and worldviews.
Right.
And to the point of wanting them to stop doing that. But, like, the idea that, like, you have where I have to go over there and physically stop them. Like, I can't do that. Like, you're free to disagree with other people's cultures and even advocate for change, or like work with the people in those cultures advocating for change. That's what I keep saying.
Right.
Like, there are tons of women working to end like honor killings, FGM, in those cultures, which I know about from like doing research into like phenomena like that.
So I just want to give you an example, because evolution can be a hot topic, but it's like, you got to define the term. Evolution is simply change over time. So why have we not morally evolved today if we think we're so much better? And this is where I feel like humanism is hollow. Why have we not evolved that we can't seem to get rid of war, or we can't seem to get rid of honor killings? All this murder going on, and it's like, are we really that illogical? Are we really that self-destructive? Something ought to change. And that ought points to, there's something outside of all of us that says that ought not to be the way it is, right? And that's a very hard truth people to come up against. Don't you agree?
I don't completely understand like the point you just made. Like, honestly, I don't really get what you're saying should happen as a, like, do you want to change people's minds? What are you gonna do?
They have their own choice, their own decision. We engage in a discussion over whether or not whose idea, right, has more evidence for its trustworthiness, for its reliability. And so obviously we are both agreeing that murder is wrong, but I'm trying to say, okay, well, we are appealing to something objective, something transcendent outside of every single person here, that there's a truth outside of all of us.
Like, I think when you say truth, you're saying like capital T truth, like it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to Christianity. We have basic empathy and compassion.
Yes.
I feel like that's the basis for most ethical discussion. And you're kind of sweeping that over with this idea that we require some kind of universal religious creed to coexist as people on the planet.
And I'm not saying that
you're doing it because, like, functionally you are Christian, sure, and you believe that you derive morals from, what's the word, Judeo-Christianity.
No, from Jesus.
Yeah, I know, I was making a joke about earlier.
This world, what you reap, you will sow. This world is imbued with eternity.
That's very similar to Buddhism. Do you not understand
similar,
that?
but
Buddhism
it's different. And so you have to ask yourself, if there are differences, do they contradict? No, very clearly we're saying truth is personal. God is personal as revealed in Jesus.
Like, how is that a personal thing? We all have the same Bible, right? Okay. We're all looking at the same text.
Okay. If I come up to you and say, hi Brady, like, how are you? Like, you're over there. You're like, no, my name's Brooke. It's about revelation, right? It's about how much is revealed in a relationship, right? And I think that's why it's so difficult for some of us to talk about this, is because we don't want to reveal who we really are.